Good morning, everyone. It's so glad that everybody is here this morning. We are excited that you are coming to us from your living rooms or your offices or wherever you are. We can't wait to have you here actually in the sanctuary with us. We are anxious for that, but we are glad where you are with us today. We are so thrilled to have Noelle with us this morning. It's been a while, and she's going to help us out with some stuff. I just want to talk real quick about praise. Praise originates in a heart full of love to God. Praise is offered for who God is. Psalm says, I call to the Lord who is worthy of praise. Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress. My God, in Him alone will I trust. Let's do this one, Bob.
Who am I that the highest King would welcome me? I was lost, but He brought me in. Oh, His love for me. Yes, His love for me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. Free at last, He has ransomed me, His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to myself, Jesus rescued me. Yes, He rescued me. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. I am who you say I am. Who the Son sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God, yes I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child of God, yes I am.
And here's some of the things that God says about us. It says the Spirit of God lives inside of us. We are free from fear and oppression and death. We are holy and without blame, and we have the mind of Christ. We have the peace of God that passes all understanding. All of our needs are met according to His riches and glory. We have the spirit of wisdom and revelation. We can do miraculous things through the authority and power over darkness in this world. We have been chosen by God. You are spiritually transformed, renewed, and set apart for God's purpose.
Not forsaken, I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I am. I am chosen, not forsaken. I am who you say I am. You are for me, not against me. I am who you say I
Make sure you're on. Yes, you are on.
We're sharers here at Center of Unity. All right. I thought I saw you moving around back there, Sherry, but I wasn't sure if that was a signal to me. The lights are bright when we're standing up here on the platform. Welcome to Center of Unity. And yes, indeed, we all are children of God, and we're grateful you're here with us today. Invite you to just join in with us in this Sunday experience through the blessings of music, through the message, through the meditation, through all that is offered to you to explore and to claim as your own and as your own birthright into being in this world. We are grateful that you're here, and we are excited today and invite you to join us at 1 o'clock for our virtual town hall meeting, the first one since I've been here. We have a lot of really wonderful information to share with you, and in addition, it will be an opportunity for you to give us feedback, ask questions, and just open the channels of communication with all of the community. We are grateful for this day and for all that it offers, and we just take a moment to center ourselves in this awareness that we are indeed filled and can tap into that energy of God that is alive within us. And as we breathe into this awareness, we feel our mind and our heart opening to new possibilities, new ways of being, new ways of engaging in life, so that we can truly fulfill our purpose. And we each have the same purpose, just expressed in different ways: to be a light unto this world. And for the many beautiful lights that are shining brightly in this moment and in the moments that unfold, we say thank you. Thank you, God. Amen.
And we would like to share with you our mission of the Center of Unity. And we inspire spiritual growth through prayer, education, and sacred service. Vision of the Center of Unity, that we envision a world free of judgment and filled with love. And our core value today is service. We lovingly serve our spiritual community and the community at large. And the behaviors that kind of depict this value is COVID-19 has been extremely challenging. Many have experienced a loss of loved ones, unemployment, depression, etc. Yet, I have seen God in action in so many ways through hundreds and hundreds of people of all ages. Lovingly serving can easily be accomplished each and every day of our lives. One can lovingly serve in simple and complex ways because each of those receiving feel blessed. Lovingly serving can be accomplished by simply allowing a pedestrian to walk across the road, holding a door open for someone, expressing appreciation for someone's actions, sending a get well card, supporting someone in prayer, donating food, which we've seen a great deal of that, lovingly serving, teaching someone how to utilize Zoom. And Jesus demonstrated lovingly service throughout his life. And what a teacher. Each time we lovingly serve, I, in my heart, and believe and know that in our communities and in the world at large, our God rejoices. Thank you for being here with us at the Center of Unity.
Good morning, Center of Unity. Oh, good morning, Center of Unity, and everybody out in YouTube land and Facebook land. Now, I'd like to share Unity's 5 basic principles. There is one presence and one power in the universe and in our lives, God the good, omnipotent. The divinity is in all humankind. Jesus was not the exception, rather the example. We have direct access to God through prayer and meditation. We create our life experiences through our way of thinking, feeling, and acting. We can demonstrate now the good we desire. And the word for today is connection from the Daily Word. The centering thought is, I honor my connection with all people. No matter how great the distance that exists between me and the people I care about, I know we are connected by our love for one another. Today, I reestablish and strengthen this connection by reaching out, even if it's only to let someone I know I'm thinking of them. Our connection is also kept strong through prayer. As I pray for those I care about, I bless them by holding my highest vision for their lives, seeing them as healthy, prosperous, happy, and fulfilled. Whether we're in frequent contact or have fallen out of touch, my connection with my loved ones remains strong because we are one in God, one in love. The scripture comes from 1 Corinthians 12:13. For in the one Spirit we were all baptized into one body, Jews or Greeks, slaves or free, and we were all made to drink of one Spirit. And now, on this last day of February, I would like to highlight for Black History Month, Jarena Lee. Jarena Lee, February 11th, 1783 to February 3rd, 1864. Born in Cape May, New Jersey. She was a 19th century African-American female preacher born into a free Black family. Still, Lee felt the immorality of slavery. She was changed one day after hearing one of Richard Allen's passionate sermons. At a time period of segregation and unequal privilege, Richard Allen would later give her the opportunity for her voice to be heard. Side note here, Richard Allen was a minister and founder of the AME, African Methodist Episcopal Church. It was the first independent Black denomination in the United States. He opened the first church in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I mention this because my older brother and I, we were raised in the AME denomination. And I feel a double connection with Karina through race and religion. Back to Jarena Lee. She was also the first African-American woman to have an autobiography published in the United States. One day, she heard a message. Go preach the gospel. I will give you the words in your mouth. I will put the words in your mouth. Lee then told Richard Allen, but he said that there was no provision for women preachers in the Methodist Church. This did not stop Lee from pursuing her call, asking, is he not a whole Savior instead of half of one? In other words, is God not for women as well as men? Allen still refused, But 8 years later, during a Sunday service, the preacher went mute. He lost spirit, she says. So Lee herself, she stepped up and she began to preach to the crowd, and they were intrigued by her. Religious belief, especially in God's divine protection, became a source of self-empowerment for Lee. Lee continued to face hostility to her ministry because she was black and a woman. She became a traveling minister, traveling thousands of miles on foot. In 1 year, she traveled 2,325 miles and preached 178 sermons. She struggled with depression, but after hearing that sermon, after hearing the sermon, as well as believing in what she believed God said to her, she became a very spirited woman. She did marry Joseph Lee in 1811. He did not want her to preach, so she felt forced to put her spiritual needs on hold for her marriage. After Joseph's death, 6 years into the marriage, Lee once again became fully devoted to religious concerns, but her ill health never recovered. Lee broke the mold of what a black woman in this time period truly meant. Her fight for women in religion inspired African American women and men then and today. Lee had an impact even on current history. She largely influenced Michelle Obama's memoir. Though different in jobs, Michelle used Lee's work to help spread awareness as the First Lady. Michelle and Jarena both became the first of. Michelle, the first black First Lady, and Jarena as the first woman preacher. Finally, Jarena Lee is also currently the subject of a research project at Harvard Divinity School entitled The Resurrection of Jarena Lee. This is the last day of Black History Month, which brings to mind something I heard someone say. Black history is human history. Black history is American history. So today, let's all celebrate Reverend Jarena Lee.
Thank you, Bob. That was beautiful. You know, as I was leaving the church last Sunday, and I was thinking about this idea that I had shared, that the author suggested that our spiritual journey, in part, called us each to upgrade our operating systems so that we can live from this place that we call the kingdom of heaven. The thought occurred to me that this is exactly the kind of example that Jesus would use if he was speaking in parables to a modern day audience, if he was walking the earth today. And as I was driving home, I said, well, maybe let me give it a go and just see how this might unfold as a short little parable. So here's my first attempt at writing a parable for our modern day times, and it's simple. It says this: the kingdom of heaven is like a unitive operating system upgrade. It requires that your device, this part of us, is plugged in order to receive it. So there you go. Yay! I think Jesus probably would have done a better job at that and explaining that, but that was my attempt at it. So this morning we're continuing to explore Jesus and the message of Jesus and the life of Jesus from a perspective of a wisdom teacher, an enlightened master who calls us to a radical shift in consciousness, one that moves away from the alienation and polarization of an egoic operating system into that unified field of divine abundance that can only be perceived when we are looking at life and experiencing life through the heart. The most important and I think the most practical question is, how do we make this shift in consciousness? This is something I think that we explore ongoing in our unity understanding, and I use the word loosely, theology, in our own evolution and our own desire to live a life that puts on the mind of Christ. How can we get plugged in to receive it? Cynthia Bourgeault, the author of The Wisdom Jesus, suggests that the path that Jesus demonstrated is something that she calls kenosis. In Greek, the word kenosian, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but I believe that's close. What it means is, what the essence of that word is to let go, is to empty oneself. This is the word that in the original scriptures that Paul chose to use in Philippians 2, verse 9, to describe to his followers what putting on the mind of Christ is all about, to help them begin to understand this. And this is what he wrote. He said, through his state that was of God, yet he did not deem equality with God something he chose to cling to. Rather, he emptied himself, and assuming the state of a slave, he was born into human likeness. He, being known as one of us, humbled himself, obedient even unto death, even as he experienced it on the cross. Paul recognized that in order for us to do what Jesus did, we would have to follow that same path of self-emptying. We would have to be willing to almost fall completely through the bottom in order to be returned to our unitive and spiritual state. No matter what the life circumstance was, Jesus always responded with the same motion of self-emptying, the same motion of descent, going lower, taking the lower place, not the higher. And I think if you look at the scriptures, you'll begin to see that's true. For most of us, as spiritual seekers, this almost feels counterintuitive. It's certainly counterintuitive to the ways in which theology has expressed to us and called us to experience God, which was up. The idea of spiritual ascent has been around for a very long time. Long before Christianity, early civilizations like the Egyptians had the belief that the gods, in their case, were above, and that below them, the descent was about evil and death. The Jewish tradition of the Old Testament describes the ascent to heaven pretty consistently. We have the image of Jacob's ladder, climbing Jacob's ladder in order to reach that place of spiritual embracement, that place that we would label as heaven. Or Elijah riding off into the skies, into the heavens on a chariot. This idea of kenosis, this act of self-giving, self-abandonment in what we share with others, and this idea of radical abundance, is one that asks us to put aside all that we think we know about the path and where our journey and how our journey leads us to that oneness with God. The Sufi mystic Rumi may have best captured the trajectory that Jesus followed in this way. He writes that love is recklessness, not reason. Reason seeks a profit. Love comes on strong, consuming herself, unabashed. Yet, in the midst of suffering, love proceeds like a millstone, hard-surfaced and straightforward. Having died to self-interest, she risks everything and asks for nothing. Love gambles away every gift that God bestows. The author writes that Jesus certainly called us to dying to the self, and we think of that in the lower self, the little I. But the idea of dying to self was not, as Jesus demonstrated, through inner renunciation. It wasn't by denying who we are. And it wasn't about guarding the purity of our being. Rather, through radically squandering everything that he had and everything that he was. Like in the parable of the landowner paying his workers that we explored last week, abundance and generosity, almost bordering on extravagance, were signatures of his life and his teachings. He fed the multitudes, and we're told that there was an abundance left over. And reminds people often that it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, that all that you see is yours. Why do you worry? Why do you struggle? He reminds us that nothing is to be renounced or judged or resisted. Everything can be embraced. The catch is that we cling to none of it. You know, the best example that I've witnessed and experienced in modern day kenosis came from a member of the Roanoke community that I had served by a woman named Jill Harrington. And I want to share with you an excerpt of the book that she wrote along with Jane Vance about an experience, a very difficult experience that has been a part of her life. The book is called Dead and Gone for Good, and the emphasis on the for good. And it details her journey of navigating her daughter Morgan's murder. For those of you This might ring a few bells because it was well reported in national news, but Morgan was a student at Virginia Tech, and she disappeared from outside of a concert at Metallica in Charlottesville, Virginia, in October of 2009. Her remains were discovered 3 months later in a nearby rural farmland. And her case received national attention. And in 2014, some years later, after the abduction and death of Hannah Graham, also out of Charlottesville, Virginia, there was a suspect that was identified, one named Jesse Matthews, and ultimately, through DNA, he was linked to both Morgan's murder and another brutal rape that happened in the Washington, D.C. area some years even before that. And at his trial, where he pled guilty, and this was the sentencing, Jane describes what she witnessed during that time. And she writes this: "Please recall that miracles are always and have always been available, but you have to see them and choose them. You have to participate to conjure and receive a miracle. And after you have witnessed them, you realize that miracles are, to be exact, corrections of bad habits. Miracles save us, and today was a day of miracles. From the beginning, Jill Harrington consistently worked to safekeep the next girl and not to unleash retribution and bloody vengeance. Today, Jill chose the direct path to miracles, and with my own eyes, I saw the blessings arrive." Before the murderer and the judge entered the room, there were two sides to the courtroom: the victim's side and the murderer's side, divided by a central aisle. That is how we have seated ourselves, how we have divided ourselves. Jesse's uncle had been Jill's first contact with Jesse's mother months ago in this very room. And when Jill months ago had walked over to Deborah Carr, she offered condolences and extended her hand. Today, the same uncle was seated just to my left on the other side. He seemed to have depths of kindness in his profile, and I watched. He turned to look back into my eyes. I nodded at him, and in response, he rose. Gently, he stood. A little stiffly, he crossed that immense and immeasurable aisle. He put his hand out, and then the miracles began. Morgan's papa, Dan, was to my right, and Jesse's uncle held out his hand to Dan. This would be the first contact between Jesse's family and Morgan's papa, who would, in a few minutes, be asked to take the witness stand and deliver his impact statement. Jesse's uncle apologized first to Dan and then to Jill, leaning close and doing his best that he could in a few seconds, though distraught. Mr. Carr was evangelical and sincere. And before he went back to his seat, 9 other people in his family slowly rose. They were all on the other side of the aisle, where they were expected to sit, loathed and untouchable. They were all rising to come across that aisle, one by one, men and women. Jesse's relatives waited their turn, and they all offered their hand to Dan and Jill. They all apologized, and many wept. Dan and Jill accepted them all. I felt the courtroom somehow converging with a different energy, a dimension which most of us only hear about in Sunday school. This procession across the aisle was a sacred, spontaneous enactment of the oldest and deepest wisdom, which is to do the least damage and the most good, to choose healing over hatred and mercy over power. Jesse's mother rose last. Like Lazarus, she followed some internal imperative. Unsteady, she walked towards the aisle. Yet unlike her family members, she could go no further. She could not step or reach into the territory of the victims. She stood alone, unable to proceed beyond the small space she occupied in the aisle. Without a plan, the most castigated woman in the Commonwealth, she simply stood. This was the place where she had to stand, awaiting her own sentencing. And then I saw Jill rise, and she approached Jesse's mother in the middle of that aisle. And in that moment, the great divide of humanity, where difficult choices are made to battle evil, to author theories of exclusion and superiority, to offer kindness, to crusade, Jill stepped and raised both of her arms. She gently and silently enfolded Jesse's mama. Two mamas, now in one cocoon, leaning on each other's shoulders, intimate, exhausted, but determined together. I know, it gets to me every time. Forgiveness is not what I saw. In their embrace, I saw raw, unexpected, unguarded, unjudgmental compassion. They whispered back and forth to each other, and later, Jill told me what she and Jesse's mom had said to each other as they hugged in that unusually irredeemable and infertile space between families. Will you always pray for me, Jill? Yes, I will pray for you, Deborah. Will you pray for me, Deborah? Yes, I will always pray for you, Jill. The richest blessings take work and skill to recognize, to accept, and to foster. Miracles require that we shed all clinging vestiges of hate. If we can manage our own part in the miracle, then, tentative at first, like a blossom unfurls, joy will open again. And when it finally opens, joy will open in all directions. Beautifully written by Jane. And when I asked permission to Jill to share this story, she added the following thoughts. So this was several years later. She said, in her words, well, it was really not that big of a deal. I saw that she was suffering, and I extended to her because I instinctively wanted to provide comfort. Her pain was no less acute and undeserved than mine. Grief has tremendous transformative power. If you allow it, it can pickle you in bitterness and sorrow. But if you choose differently, it can hone you, just as Paul talked about, into finer, better stuff that is more perceptive and responsive to the pain of others around you. It allows you to be generous, even lavish, with your compassion and love. She goes on to say, to extend a hand in comfort to someone who is braced for a blow is a profoundly sacred moment. I want you to hear that. To extend a hand of comfort to someone who is expecting to have judgment, to have anger, is a profoundly sacred moment. I wanted his mother and his family to know that I harbor no ill will or hatred towards them. And, more importantly, I wanted the entire community to understand my position so that others would not feel entitled or emboldened to direct hatred at this family. You know, out of this tragedy, good indeed has arisen. Jill, in her effort to honor and to celebrate and to empower this event that was so devastating for her family, formed the organization Help Save the Next Girl, which now has chapters all across the country. And their focus is on diligent activism in education, in victim support, and in legislation. As we ponder for ourselves what it means to self-empty, what it means to be willing to cling to nothing except for the energy of love, as is expressed as kindness, as compassion, we begin to discover that the way to awakening, that the way to our own spiritual unfoldment and evolution is not up, but rather down through the depths, only to discover that we arise once again to the fullness of God in our lives. So I want to invite you to join with me as we move into a time of meditation, to bring this fully into our being and to perhaps in the quietness of our mind and heart be able to experience what it's like. And what I'd like to offer you today is another practice of what we explored last week called the welcoming practice. And it's simply an opportunity when we find ourselves in that energy of anger or fear or upset or pain, that we focus on it, that we counterintuitively welcome it, and then when it has softened enough with our attention to let it go. So if you'll join me right where you're at and just allow yourself to shift and get comfortable and to bring your attention to your body temple as it breathes naturally and easily in that cycle of never-ending life. Feeling your feet grounded into the earth and your heart slowly opening to the universal love that is always present. Begin to just become aware if there is some particular place in your body that you're noticing pain, or some emotional energy that's running through you now, whether it be worry or anger, fear. And just see where that is in your body and begin to place your attention there. And then as you have honed in and centered in, allowing yourself to fully feel that pain or that emotion, welcome it even more. Silently say to yourself, welcome pain, welcome fear, welcome worry, welcome anger. And continuing this energy of welcoming of whatever it is that you're focusing on right now. See if you notice at some point in time that it begins to soften, to dissipate, to become more malleable. And then see if you can just let it go, to release it back out into the ethers of the universe, knowing that it is transformed by that ever-present energy of love. And then bring your attention back to the breath, breathing that energy of wholeness, of love, of joy, of kindness and compassion into that space. Becoming aware again of your physical presence, perhaps wiggling your toes or your fingers, just bringing yourself fully awake into this moment. Energized, excited, hopeful. That as we welcome it all in, as we allow ourselves to fully self-empty into this energy of compassion and kindness, we bring about the kingdom of heaven, alive in us, and like ripples across the pond, awakening every part of our world. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So kenosis is more than just a path. It is almost a sacred alchemy. As we practice it in our daily life, in our acts of compassion, of kindness, of self-emptying, both at the level of our doing, but even as important at the level of our being, something is catalyzed out of that act, which is a pure and divine substance. Subtle qualities of divine love and that essence that is essential to our well-being are released out into the planet through our actions and through the flow into the world, that we can, when we're alive and alert to it, witness as miracle, as healing, and as of hope. While we may not be at the Christ level of this self-emptying practice, of letting go of it all, we can move ourselves in that direction. And that is my invitation this week, is to, as often as possible, remember to be humble and kind.
You know there's a light that glows by the front door. Don't forget the keys under the mat. When childhood stars shine, always stay humble and kind.
Go to church 'cause your mama says to. Visit grandpa every chance that you can. It won't be wasted time. Always stay humble and kind. Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie.
I know you got mountains to climb, but always stay humble and kind.
yourself feel the pride. Always stay humble and kind. Don't expect a free ride from no one. Don't hold a grudge or a chip, and here's why. Bitterness keeps you from flying. Always stay humble and kind.
Know the difference between sleeping with someone and sleeping with someone you love. I love you ain't no pickup line, so always stay humble and kind.
Hold the door, say please, say thank you. Don't steal, don't cheat, and don't lie.
I know you got mountains to climb,
But always stay humble and kind. When those dreams you're dreaming come true, when the work you put in is realized, let yourself feel the pride.
but always stay humble and kind.
When it's hot, eat a root beer and popsicle. Shut off the AC and roll the windows down. Let the summer sun shine, but always stay humble and kind.
Don't take for granted the love this life gives you. When you get where you're going, don't forget, turn back around. Help the next one in line. Always stay humble and
Good morning. Good morning. Now is the time to prepare our tithes, gifts, and love offerings for the church. As you hold your gift in heart and mind, join me in the offering blessing. Divine love, as me, blesses and multiplies all that I give, all that I receive, and all that I am. Amen. If you're watching us from the first time, we're glad you have chosen to join us, and we welcome you. We invite you to visit our website, www.centerofunity.org, and fill out the Connect card. We would love to hear from you. Today, we remember and appreciate our musical talents who add so much to our services. Bob, Jim, Lori, Stephen, Beck, Jeff, Noel, Jessica, and all the others who join us from time to time. You add so much, and we thank you. And so for all that you give, we love you, we bless you, we truly appreciate you, and we behold the Christ in you. Namaste.
Here's what's coming up at Center of Unity. We are delighted to announce that we have the opportunity to deepen our understanding of connection and community with a 7-week series on Marshall Rosenberg's nonviolent communication, facilitated by Karen Stars. In this series, we will learn how to dissolve enemy images and free our life energy to create more peace in the world. Although this is a series, you don't have to commit to all 7 sessions. Come as you are and meet your community at a deeper level. You can register from our website or the Center of Unity app. Every Tuesday at 11:30 a.m., Reverend Linda leads a metaphysical Bible interpretation class on Zoom. Each class is self-contained and all are welcome to join. The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from the website or the Center of Unity app. Every Sunday, we gather on Zoom before church to say hi and catch up. Come join us from 10 to 10:25 a.m. The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from our website or the Center of Unity app. Our town hall meeting is this afternoon at 1 p.m. Join us for this important and informational meeting where we'll get the news, ask questions, and share our thoughts. The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from our website or the Center of Unity app. The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity class meets on Thursdays from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. for the next 4 weeks. It's based on the book by Edwin Gaines. Be sure to join us as we consciously grow our faith towards receiving the divine inheritance we've not yet claimed. The Zoom ID is on the screen, or you can access it from our website or the Center of Unity app. There are multiple ways you can make a donation to the Center of Unity. You can drop your donation off at the church, mail it to our P.O. box, visit our website, use the COU or Venmo app, or you can text 817-606-8768 and follow the prompts. Your continued support is greatly appreciated.
All right, so we want to thank everybody for being here with us today. Thank you so much. Don't forget that we have our town hall meeting today at 1 o'clock. You can find that information for the Zoom ID on the website and on the app. Thank you, Noel, for being here today. It was absolutely fantastic. Everybody, band as usual. Bob, let's do our peace song.
On earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as our Father, family all are we. Let me walk with my family in perfect harmony. Let this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my joyous vow. To take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin.
And so as we go into this day, into this week, let us go with the awareness that the path to the kingdom of heaven comes when we are willing to be humble and to be kind. And we go knowing our prayer for protection together. The light of God surrounds us. I am the light of God. The love of God enfolds us. I am the love of God. The power of God protects us. I am the power of God, and the presence of God watches over us. I am the presence of God. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well.